What shocking discovery made you completely reevaluate your entire childhood? My father remarried 3 months after my mother abandoned us for her rich boyfriend. Looking back, I should have known something was wrong when Janet, his new wife, flinched every time he entered a room. She was sweet to me, always making my favorite snacks and helping with homework, but she had this nervous habit of checking every lock in the house multiple times. When I was 9, our basement flooded during a massive thunderstorm, and while Dad barked orders at us to move boxes, I found something behind the water heater that made my skin crawl. There was this sealed storage area with a thin wooden panel, and inside were all my mother's things: her purse, her wallet, her car keys, and her favorite red shoes, the ones she wore every Sunday to church. My chest felt tight because my mom supposedly left everything behind for her new life. But what woman leaves without her driver's license or the $300 cash I could see tucked in her wallet? I grabbed the purse and ran upstairs. When I showed him what I found, his whole face changed from annoyed to pale to furious in seconds. He snatched the purse from me and said Mom left everything because Richard, her new boyfriend, was loaded and bought her whatever she wanted. Soon after, Dad called his buddy Mike, the contractor. I watched from the stairs as they mixed concrete and bricked up the entire wall. Mike kept saying this seemed like overkill for water damage, but Dad just told him to keep working. The next morning when I asked why Mom's stuff had to stay sealed up, Dad drove me to a doctor who was his drinking buddy. This quack diagnosed me with trauma-induced false memories from abandonment and gave me pills that made me feel like I was walking through fog for the next 8 years. I let it go after Janet begged me to stop bringing my mom up, otherwise we would both be hurt. For 23 years I blocked that memory out until my dad died of a stroke. Janet called me sobbing and I flew home to help with everything, even though we had barely spoken since I left for college. While sorting through his files, I found this thick folder labeled Janet Medical, and inside were 20 years of therapy receipts that made my stomach drop. Her intake form said the patient believes the husband harmed the first wife and has auditory hallucinations of crying from walls. That night I cornered Janet in the kitchen and she just crumbled like she had been waiting decades for someone to ask. She told me Mom's sister Ava had called constantly for 2 years, insisting Mom would never leave without saying goodbye to me. She showed me notebooks where she had written down every strange thing, including how Dad insisted on doing all home repairs himself and got violent when she suggested hiring professionals. I called a contractor the next day pretending I needed a mold inspection. When his equipment showed the density was all wrong in that bricked up section, he carefully opened it and immediately stumbled back, telling me not to touch anything and to call 911. My mother's remains were wrapped in plastic sheeting. The contractor pointed out 2 more areas with weird readings while we waited for police, and I threw up in the utility sink when I realized what that meant. The forensics team found 2 more bodies, one in a sealed crawl space and another under the garage floor that Dad had poured himself in 1981. DNA confirmed they were his first wife, who supposedly went back to Mexico without a goodbye, and a girlfriend of my dad's who vanished decades ago. The detective showed me my mom and my dad's first wife both had just opened their own bank accounts and met with divorce lawyers before they disappeared. It seemed every time he felt like someone was leaving them, he took care of them first. Janet pulled out a suitcase she had hidden for months and showed me the life insurance policies Dad took out on her 6 months ago. The investigation revealed Dad had already bought concrete mix and was measuring the pantry for renovations that week. Only his stroke ended him first. Janet and I spent 12 hours at the police station, and she held my hand when I had to identify Mom's jewelry, including the engagement ring I used to play with when she tucked me in. The detective said Dad fit the profile of a family annihilator, someone who kills rather than face exposure or abandonment, but that felt too clean for what he really was. Despite everything, something was nagging at me. I went back to the medical folder for Janet and found her therapy notes from the week before Dad's stroke. My blood went cold as I read her therapist's notes. Patient shows signs of planning something drastic, refused to elaborate. I looked up at Janet, who was watching me from the doorway. You read it, didn't you? She said softly. 20 years of fear does things to a person. He was going to put me in those walls, so I saved us both. My heart pounded as she moved closer, pulling something from her pocket. But now you know, just like your mother knew too much. I still have the rest of those pills your father gave you, the ones that make you forget. She stood between me and the door. That nervous woman I'd known for decades, suddenly steady and dangerous. We can do this the easy way, or I can finish the renovation your father started. I kept all his tools. Full story on channel, linked below.